Hi everyone, I'm Airier, and today we're going to be looking more of a fan with too much time Star Wars vs. 40k story, specifically Episode 7, The Crimson Razors. Now, last episode was so much world building. Not a lot happened in the episode. It just showed us the factions and how they're starting to... I was going to say the word mesh, but honestly, it's more like... Think of a clock, where every other piece is slightly broken and a little off time, so sometimes they grind against each other. But not so much grind as actively try to dominate the other gears to their will. Basically 40k. So, yeah. I don't know what's going to happen, but I have a feeling it's going to be bad, and I'm looking forward to this, man. So if you haven't already, link below, original video, hit it up. And when you're done, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Let's get started. Ooh, I don't know this animation source. It's really old CGI.
Humanity has always looked skyward for its true path. We stood at the edge of destruction and would have fallen.
Okay, I have absolutely no idea where this is from, but I kind of like it. Is this fan-made or part of the games? If anyone knows, I'm just curious. Can you let me know? I'd appreciate that.
If not for the might,
would have sworn that was Optimus Prime speaking.
And his angels of death.
But definitely not. Ooh.
Forged in blood.
Okay, that I know is a Astartes, the black and white thing. I've seen that animation. Really good.
We are the living weapons of humanity.
Oh, I said Astartes. That's the Grimaldi story.
Marines.
Dude. I can't believe I forgot the name of that. Huh. Weird. Okay, that is Astartes, though. That I recognize. Oh, so are these all fan animations? Holy crap. Dude, I think that's actually from a game. That's Astartes. Dude, there's so many sources I don't even recognize, which is actually kind of cool. The Crimson Razors. Moving less from
Davik Thune had waited for weeks. He had shut down his Gellerfield when they had impeded his path, and the Emperor, despite the claims of the now dead navigators, had protected them better than those ancient relics ever could. His men had braced, prepared to be overwhelmed by the endless tide of damnation which...
This is one thing I'm actually kind of curious about. The navigators, did they all die because of him or because they wouldn't shut it off? How did they die? He said all the navigators. I'm assuming that's hyperbole, or did he literally have no navigators right now? It's Space Marines. It could go either way. I don't actually know.
Owned the warp and all who served it, and yet no such onrush of daemons came. Things came, of that he was certain, but they were not the vicious entities his men had been ready to die fighting. A black and white fog had blown into his ship, moving through walls and bodies without...
Oh, so this is the ship. Okay, when they said the Gellerfield went down, I thought they were talking in the past tense, as in, we've already moved past that fact. No. We're getting a recounting of the information from when the Gellerfield actually went down. Oh, sorry, I thought because the story had moved beyond that point, and even though I guess the last chapter was backtracking a bit to see the 40k side. I almost said Star Wars. Weird. But now we're doing it again to see his side when they immediately came out of the warp the very first time. So this is even before the confrontation. Oh.
Pause or impediment. With this strange mist came souls, but not many. Some were Xenos, some were human. All were dazed, drifting, and utterly uninterested in them. He would have had his librarians capture some of them for interrogation, but they were too busy steering his ships in place of the navigators.
And that answers my questions. All of the navigators died. I'm assuming this is the ship early on, a couple episodes ago, where they talked about the ships that refused to drop their Gellerfields because it would blow them out. And it looks like it blew out the navigators and maybe the Gellerfield, so they're down. And this is going to be a weird thing, but can librarians do that with a ship? I mean, it's a story. It's not a huge point, but in normal canon, could a librarian or any number of librarians actually just run a ship itself? It seems like the training would be significantly different. I mean, if the librarian's old enough, they probably got the training somewhere, but it just seems like one of those things that they wouldn't really normally do.
Those heretics had claimed the Emperor was dead. They had claimed his light was vanished. And yet, what else could this be
Psyker
but the
being executed.
Emperor's own Aegis?
Nope, third eye, that's
They had died
astropath?
traitors' deaths, and the survival of his fleet in the Naked Warp was all the vindication he needed in order to know for certain that he had been right. And he had been right for weeks. He had been waiting, watching, and at last...
Normally I wouldn't comment on the art itself when I know it's from a source that's not directly related to this, but this is unique art. I'd almost want to say that's Gilliman because it's kind of depicting the laurels, but no, it's really not. Just the blue Tech Priest. This is old art, isn't it? Oh yeah, this is very old art. I don't even know what the purple is supposed to be because the only purple chapter I can think of off the top of my head is definitely not Loyalist. I'm just really curious about this. I don't even know what this weapon is. It looks like a pipe. Oh, is that a librarian? Oh, okay, never mind. That makes more sense. Cool insignia. No idea what chapter that is, but it's really old art. Almost looks like it's watercolored even. Huh. Also, yeah, this is very much the religious chapter, huh?
He did not know if this galaxy was even their own, but he knew that
coming to that
here
right away,
would
nice.
tell him for certain. He had been here, after all, during the fall. He had watched, wounded and from orbit, when
fall?
Cadia was finally brought to its
Oh,
knees.
that fall!
Davik had watched as Abaddon, 16 times damned traitor, had hurled the ruins of his greatest weapon at Cadia, discarding the power and knowledge of an entire Blackstone fortress and several of his own men and ships to steal a bitter victory from the clutches of honorable defeat. Like a petulant child sweeping the board of a game.
Is this Lego 40K? I mean, I know it's art, but it almost looked like Lego style for some reason. I don't know why I'm thinking that. Also, I just want to point out the idea that he stole honorable victory from... Right, he stole a dishonorable victory from honorable defeat. I was like, what? Dude, really? Honorable defeat? That actually is very telling. It seems like the other chapter was more pragmatic, but also way more, we will be involved. This chapter seems more like the gung-ho, and I was assuming religious fanatics, which is very much a thing in a lot of space chapters. I'm looking at you, specific crusading chapter, black and white. I have no idea which possible chapter I'm referring to right there. I also don't know why I'm not able to remember the word Black Templars for some reason. Weird. Who knows, my memory should. But more importantly, just this is really revealing on a more character basis. Because when you see what he's focusing on, the honor and the dishonorable victory over an honorable loss, but he's attributing it to Abaddon. It's not so much that he's saying it, it's that he's attributing it to someone he said was 16 times down and was a literal freaking chaos knight. Wow, not yet. I'm assuming eventually they'll say, hey, he got into an accident, now he's dead. He's come back as Abaddon, the Chaos Knight. Let's be honest, they would do it to sell models after they finally got around to moving the story forward. I fully assume it'll be like some kind of dreadnought for Chaos, but it'll be knight-sized. Shit, I actually want that now. More importantly, just very much honor before even loyalty to the Emperor then. Which is probably not the way they wanted to go, but it's very telling that that's the focus.
He simply was not going to win. Abaddon bled himself, bled his Black Legion, and did what no one else had ever done.
Is that called down the
what
bottom?
no one else would ever do again. Thus was how complete the shattering of Cadia had been. It was a vision he knew more intimately and painfully than any other, and he had worked hard in the time since then to overcome the defeat they had all suffered there that day. Davik had become the chapter master of the Crimson Razors, had changed from being a detractor of the controversial reforms of his forebears to being their foremost champion.
What?
All of this he had done with the thought of Cadia's shattered stellar body trapped forever in his mind's eye. It was an image he knew better than any other, and it was not the image that greeted his hungering eyes as his battle barge, the Black Crimson, emerged from the warp. What he saw instead of the haunted ruin of Cadia and its sister planets was interesting but unwelcomed. This confirmed his suspicions.
They were traveling back to Cadia. I don't know if that's important, but that is a very specific location at this time period that also wouldn't be safe to travel to, considering the anchors making the warp stable in that area were part of the planet, which is broken. I'm actually wondering if they can inhabit the fragments and just make them like a station at this point. Were the pylons tied to the planet itself in the intact state, or would they work individually? It's probably never going to come up because GW. But still, very interesting that they're traveling back there specifically. Was it just their chapter trying to go there, or were they all trying to go to the ruins of Cadia? Or is he talking metaphorically that it's what he had in his head, and when he opened his eyes, it wasn't actually what he had in his head anymore? It's probably that, because if they were actually intending to go to Cadia, that is way more revealing. I don't know what it'd be revealing up, but it's revealing something, man. I'm assuming it's just his vision, not interfering with reality.
They were no longer within the bounds of the Milky Way galaxy.
Oh, you picked up on that fast.
Their desperate dash through the thinnest tendril of the Cicatrix Maledictum had somehow cast them to an entirely different galaxy, or perhaps even a parallel universe. He cared not for which one was the case.
In 40K?
Before him lay a system with two heavily populated Xenos worlds, clearly at war. The most heavily populated planet was an enormous urban world, clearly some kind of hive world for the Xenos.
Oh, he is very far away. I wasn't sure if he was in the previous chapters or I just missed it. And I know they mentioned some ships were lost. I assume these were their lost ships because their engines went down. Huh. So he's... Oh, so where we got the original chapter of the conflict being Star Wars initiating it, now we're going to get him initiating it on the Star Wars side. Oh, yeah, this is going to show off what happens when the Imperium does what the Imperium does. Huh.
Those who lived there. It was surrounded by a fleet of escort ships shaped like white and red arrowheads. Opposing the arrows
so it's
was
a
a more
CIS
varied
Republic
fleet
conflict.
of cigar and oval-shaped ships. They seemed to be in a standoff, neither side fighting the other,
Really?
their presences holding hostilities in check.
Okay, that's actually weird.
But around the less populated planet, there seemed to be much more occurring. Many ships gathered around this sphere as well, but they seemed to be exchanging fire,
What planet would this be?
contesting the space and making Davik certain of the conflict they were engaged in. Already they had dispatched wings of Fury attack craft and Thunderhawks to scout the area and retrieve more data.
Or choose
This
a side?
system was where the Cadia system was meant to be.
I don't think neutral.
If for no other reason than to honor its...
Okay, never mind. He was actually intending to go to Cadia. That's... My initial impression is, I'm assuming fans about to say it's like some kind of memento to go to this place as a jump point for safety. I don't know at this point. But that, jumping to a place that is literally no longer stable outside of the freaking warp storm that is all of the Cicatrix Maledictum, that is, that area is not stable. So either fan forgot that, which I really doubt because he's been incredibly competent up to this point about doing obscene details of lore compliance, like well beyond what is actually acceptable for most normal people, and saying like, yeah, I'm pretty true on this one. There's very few people I would actually say are this well reversed in most of the random bits of lore just to make sure they fit. Luton I would put up there, but yeah. Or maybe there is a stable section near Cadia. It might be the system itself and not actually the planet. I'll just go with that. I thought the entire area was destabilized, though. Just very surprised that he actually intended to go there physically and it wasn't just his reflection.
its memory, Davik would purge it and make it a mirror of the devastation that belonged there. My lord, we are receiving troubling information
And
from the
he's going to purge it. Okay,
said an
yep.
officer near him, his head and face heavily augmented to allow the receiving and transmission of broadcast communications.
Dude.
Speak it, Davik growled.
Ooh.
Yes, it would appear that one of the armies is composed
name's
predominantly of humans, the officer said. At this, Davik perked up. Humans? then perhaps there was a purpose to being in this galaxy after all. But his ponderings on...
Oh, this is so horrible. I love it. Because it's an entire army of clones, but that would make them entirely human. I love this. Because while the bulk of the Force is going to be anti-Star Wars, he's putting himself in a position that unless something happens right now, he's going to be aligned with them. Every single word so far makes me believe that Davik is less rational. He is more reactive. He is very much the rage and the fury that you get in Space Marines, that you get in the people who are like, fuck this. Ah! They're basically orcs without green skin. And he's the one who's going to take what could, in some very probably fucked up way, be considered the more coexistent option. Oh, I love this because it's literally the absolute wrong person to be in the right place to get the exact weirdest outcome possible. The construction of this makes perfect sense because they're fighting and one side looks human. Something is going to throw this off because I really doubt he's the person who's not going to go scorched earth. But also, I love this. I absolutely love this.
Such possibilities were cut violently short when his officer concluded his report. And the other side appears to be making rampant use of abominable intelligence.
Forgot about that part.
Davik rose from his command throne.
Yeah, I'm going to be completely honest about this. I literally forgot about the CIS being composed of droids. It's like in the back of my head, and I never really thought, hey, that would look bad. But no. This is bad. Also, there is like little belief in the back of everyone's head that, the droids are a lot smarter than they really should be. And if Palpatine wasn't intentionally gimping them, they probably would have won. By a long shot. Yeah. Granted, they were never supposed to win, so they never really had to. They were doing their jobs perfectly. Their job was to lose and to look intimidating, but also still to lose. Yeah. It's literally the perfect situation right here for someone from 40K to immediately pick a side without any reservations. An AI army against humans is literally the perfect storm. This is the guy who, if he had drawn in with the rest, would have been gung-ho murder everywhere and gone berserker crazy to the point where the Blood Angels were like, are you sure he's not one of us? Does he have the Black Rage? Is he talking about horse? No, he's just like that normally? Oh. Yeah, this is perfect.
Ancient armor whining as he rushed to the hololithic display.
Yeah.
How much? He asked.
Yes.
Like the Tau, like the Eldar. The officer shook
like
his
the
head,
Men of Iron.
Eyes wide. No, my lord. They are all machines. No biologicals found amongst them, he reported. Necrons. The chapter master of the Crimson Razors swore. It will be them that we attack first.
Honestly, Necrons might be more powerful, but only because they cheat.
Or constructs standing. Tell the Astra Militarum to prepare themselves. We are taking the planet they are fighting over. We are cleaning it of all Xenos and all AI. Then we shall move to the next planet. If the humans capitulate, then perhaps there will be a place for them. If not, then let us remember that the...
Okay, this is what I was expecting. He's going scorched earth, but he has the definite side he's going on. The fact that he's even acknowledging that they would join in is more than I expected. It's like, yeah, he might cooperate with them, but cooperate in the 40K sense, which is exactly what he just said. Oh, man. Also, I just want to point right now, love the voice acting right now for Gavik. Gravik? I can't remember names. Davik. That's it. It's deep and rumbling, and I can actually replicate it really well. Basically, it's the kind of voice you only get when you've had a major chest cold or you've smoked a carton of cigarettes a day to the point where your entire larynx moves as a solid block. Dude, it's a good voice for someone who just sounds deep and intimidating. And even when they're rushing, you can tell that they're about to do something horrible.
The fate of heretics, traitors, Xenos, and abominations are all one and the same.
Yep. Later.
It
much
was
later.
dark and red, the lights only dimly illuminating
bits of the
the
Astartes
cylindrical
animation
interior
slowed down
of
for
the
it. Nice.
boarding torpedo. The Marines were mag-locked into place, standing in 2 rows.
It's actually
The
even a good
smell
point
of
to show
scented
it, too.
ashes, sweet and strong, filled the recycled air. Many of the brothers whispered hymns of wrath. Most said nothing. Eyes still and straight ahead, thumbs tracing the triggers of chain swords, the hilts of combat knives, the internal cushioned suspension harnesses of their power fists. Brother Arachnus clutched his bolter tightly, both hands. In spite of their namesake, the Crimson Razors had always been true sons of Dorn, truer even than the Black Templars. And while the original...
Well, it's a good thing these guys are very modest. Truer than the freaking Black Templars. Oh, wow. I mean, the Black Templars got exiled for not fucking around, or specifically for fucking around, and, you know, doing what the visions of the Emperor said over the Emperor, or sorry, Dorn himself, and other reasons, speculation included. But I want to hear, I know it'll never happen because I don't think there's actually straight Imperial fists in this coalition, but just the idea that we are more true to Dorn than the Imperial fist. I want that to be said in front of some Imperial fists. Just the idea of that would be like, well, you need to die now. Just the sheer what the fuck of it, man.
Original fists had been no slouches with chain swords,
But
it was with the bolter that the Emperor's vengeance was to be delivered.
oh,
And, in spite of the many changes that had taken the chapter in recent centuries, changes that had made them more and more resemble the aforementioned Templars, all of the old guard, all of the veterans, all of the true crusaders still executed Dorn's fury with precise, professional shots from one of the small, thundering dragons the tech priests crafted for them. Bolters, such as the one he now carries.
oh, okay, I'll be honest. I wasn't expecting them to be a bolter-heavy order. Considering they're literally called the Crimson Razors, I was expecting a very melee-oriented chapter here, but no, they're going full-on bolter discipline on this thing. I guess that would make them closer to compliance with standard Imperial Fist discipline because they're more heavy on bolters then. Yeah, no, that actually makes sense. But I'm assuming because he mentioned there's a bunch of changes that they previously were way more melee-oriented. Okay, that makes sense.
Carried in his hands. She was an ancient thing, built thousands of years ago, built to kill the mechanical monstrosities of the Terrafont Entente.
What?
It had done its job well.
What?
The Terrafont and all of their constituent races were utterly extinguished.
Oh, this is something
He could
from the
almost
Crusade.
feel its machine spirit stirring, waking from centuries of sleep in the hopes of doing once more what it had done so proudly before. Soon.
Not
He
soon
could
enough.
do it. The Black Templars did have one thing right. Above nearly all other chapters, within and without the Legion of Dorn, they did stand apart in at least one crucial way. The Emperor was not simply the greatest scion of humanity, not only the mightiest champion of mankind, its ruler, its emperor.
It's God.
No. He who now sat the Golden Throne was not merely the most formidable psyker to ever live. The Emperor of mankind was a god.
Pausing before we have to age restrict this. Also, yeah, I realize there's nothing below there because it's all rotted away at this point. But more importantly, it does confirm they're basically in this situation right now where they are playing as if they are the Imperial Fist with the Imperial Fist doctrines, essentially, but super religious like the Templars. Dude. Not to mention, we know now that the guy in charge has a chip on his shoulder from Cadia. He's willing to do massive reforms to make them fall in line with the bolter discipline as opposed to what I'm assuming was more melee discipline prior to that. And he's an absolute, utter zealot. Oh. This is... I almost want to say he's a villain, but he sounds like a secondary antagonist who would also duplicate the role of a primary anti-hero. Because he's very much going to be fucked in the head. He's not going to be able to deal with anything political because that's not his wheelhouse. His wheelhouse is, you're my enemy. you die. There's not going to be that middle ground. Where the other side, the greater bulk of the 40k side, they have a way more scheming, probably even Palpatine-esque leader in charge, where this guy is very much the fuck you. Oddly pretty good in the Mace Windu side. But still, just, I like how we see the dichotomy between the two leaders. And I guess, not right now, but will probably become the two main factions of the Star Wars. I keep getting that. Why do I do that? The 40k side. We have the people who are going to mostly be the big group, but controlled and more brought together because I said so. Where this is going to be the, we're doing this shit. You following? No? You're dead. I love this because it's world building, but in a completely different way by showing exactly how focused this is.
A true God, the only God. And in the bestowing
go
of that
full on
truth through their
crusade, isn't
actions
he?
at the Ascension Wars so many centuries ago, they had earned some grudging respect from Arachnus. But their obsession with swords, with blade work, it had infected the younger Marines in his chapter. And so Brother Arachnus would show them, would lead by example, would demonstrate with lethal zeal and unerring precision why the old way was the best.
I'm a Custodes player. I don't want to say anything right now, but swords are better, guns are better. Why not make that sword a gun? It's a thing that happens. Plus, you get shields. Yeah, I'm that degenerate who runs in with an entire squad of 10 of those guys and drops them down and charges. It's stupid. It doesn't actually win. But you can't kill it. You just really can't unless I roll badly. It's just, yeah. Why decide if a sword or a gun is better when you can have both?
Way. The drill tube hit, and in milliseconds breached the outer layer of the ship they were boarding. The front end
they jumped
blew
straight into
open,
boarding.
and his fire team of 5 spilled out into the space. It was over in instants.
Wait, the chapter master jumped in with a fire team?
They had crashed through the transparent steel of the bridge of the ship, and inside were several beings. Most of these beings were machines. The hated AI the Emperor himself
They're not
had
going to throw
banned from
Grievous in this
existence.
already, will they?
But the exception among them was only marginally less abhorrent.
Alien?
A standing, spider-like Xeno, covered in cybernetic augmentations composed of its profane alien technology.
Oh, yeah, they
Still,
don't like these.
it was the lesser of the priorities, something all realized as they stormed the machines. And yet, despite the blinding speed of their movements, the faultless zeal and fury of their charge, the devastating power of the blows they sought to unleash upon these mechanical abominations,
Yes.
not a one would have the chance. Brother Arachnus' bolter let loose a hail of fire, each projectile coughed out by the thundering weapon carrying itself on a micro-engine, whipping through space with a velocity which tore the air itself.
Oh my god. I just got what he meant by he's going to show those youngsters about the standard discipline of using a bolter as opposed to the infectious gravitas of a sword. He's literally kill-stealing them. I can't even say it's a bad idea. In fact, it's actually a really well-thought-out idea and does raise my estimation of his intelligence because Marines, while they might not be competitive, they don't like people interfering with. They're very much a proud, in general, across the board, proud. And if his internal, I'm going to say monologue, that's not even a word. Monologue is anything to go by. His chapter, based on his own thought process, is very much honor-bound, zealotry-bound. The idea of just being useless, which he just rendered all of them, is probably a massive blow to their pride. But he's the chapter master, so I'm assuming he's the chapter master, because I said it earlier, and unless this is a different person that switched perspective, I doesn't realize it, but I don't think they did. So the chapter master literally just came in, kill-stealed everyone in the fire team, and going just, yeah, you took too long. This is perfect, because it's literally the best rebuke you can have. The one that doesn't need to be said. And it shows his quality as an actual leader, because they're going to get the message. Move faster, shoot them, or you just become useless. They can't even complain because he's the chapter master. It's a completely unassailable authority making a point through action. I like this because it's showing he can actually lead. He's showing it rather than putting out an edict and telling them to follow it. He's showing them. So at least on the side of competence, pretty good. He might actually be a really good leader too, but very much a zealot.
Reticles had appeared in his helmet display, highlighting each enemy with unerring accuracy, showing their bodies, the density of the cover that stood between he and they, if any, and singled out projected areas of weaknesses, heads, hearts, and groins. He didn't even remotely need them. Nearly 200 years of constant, escalating training and war against foes whose numbers knew no end,
he's significantly
and whose
younger.
forms knew no boundary of reason or dignity, had honed his mind into a killing cogitator which could far outstrip anything forged by pathetically artificial means.
Also, the fact that they're literally meant to be intentionally pathetic. It would be interesting if Palpatine threw off the reins and went full on, yeah, stop holding back. Use the fact that you're cybernetic to your full advantage. It would definitely backfire. But he could do that because he's literally a limiting factor here. Again, because the Separatists were never actually supposed to win. They were sacrificial at the end all the time. Just, also the entire thing about training his mind to be a cogitator. Technically, that is probably more than a boast, considering most cogitators are actually human brains, and a Space Marine remembers everything. Theoretically, their brains are probably working similar to a cogitator already, in the sense that they can build the pathway that maintains itself because that's how their minds now work. Huh. Weird. Granted, a cogitator also just has more electronic... No, actually, Space Marine might very well have that. Huh. Interesting. It's one of those things that's meant more metaphorically to show what his mind like, but when you think about it in the practical, it kind of holds up to that as well. Neat.
He was the blood of Dorn. He was the rage of man. But he did not shout this, not with his mouth. He shouted it with his bolter as it rained micro-missile-like death upon all false life in the room.
They are going with the
round
micro-missile
finding a head,
bolters.
a chassis, or landing close enough to the target to destroy their bodies from the proximity of the detonating bolt rounds.
Oh, we're going with the really powerful interpretation of bolt rounds. Usually people say that they're mini rockets, but various sources, and I don't just mean fan fiction related, I mean actual canon sources in various books, have wide interpretations of what a bolter is. It's not worth bringing up. Again, I would source Luton as just what it is, in the sense that it's all over the place. Every writer has some very unique take on it. Also, the fact that there's a very real chance in the 40k universe that what they call a bolter is actually a collection of types of guns, in the same way you can say something's a rifle, but then there's a whole slew of rifle variants on top of that, just because of how weird words are and how some things don't always mean what you think they mean. Kind of like how a lasgun could be solar, could be a battery pack, could have actual charges, could be something that's physical and have physical projectiles, because all of them have been sourced as writing materials. This, though, is one of the more powerful physical interpretations of the bolter, because it's not just hitting and exploding. It's a freaking grenade that then explodes, which doesn't usually go with my personal interpretation, just because they then also have grenades that do different types of damage that are wider, but these are mini grenades, but they're not actually mini because they're probably the same size, and this is a very powerful interpretation of it, though. Very cool to see.
Chain swords slashed, power fists crunched, and combat knives gouged, but they stole no life that Brother Arachnus' beloved bolter had not already taken.
Yep.
His younger brothers turned, helmed faces masking glares, but Brother Arachnus merely smiled into his mask and shrugged his shoulders.
Okay, so it's Arachnus, not...
The only one who had not even bothered, who had clearly foreseen the example he had intended to set, was Brother Taslion, their tech marine. Several times the veteran that Arachnus himself was, but barely a space marine in his opinion. Even without his encompassing armor present, Arachnus doubted that any flesh could be seen remaining on Brother Taslion's metal body. Just as most of the brothers of the chapter had come to recognize the Emperor as the one true god, so too had Taslion and the other tech marines of the chapter come to worship the nearly profane concept of the machine god and all of the...
So this is a very much fanatical group, but not all going with the same group itself. There's a wide variety of Space Marines out there when it comes to their tech priests. Some are mostly still flesh, but have augmentation. Some have it built into the armor. This guy seems like he himself is the augmentation, and the armor is more ceremonial at this point because he's probably more machine already. Actually, I wonder if at some point the armor literally is just decoration on top of all the other armor that his body has become. Huh, that'd be interesting. Yeah, also, I love the art they chose for this. I'm not sure if it's created or not. I'm pretty sure it's not.
They
original.
professed loyalty and faith in the chapter and the Emperor as well, in the form of the Omnissiah, but in truth, Brother Arachnus didn't trust it, and he wasn't the only one.
Is that an orc claw?
Brother Taslion seemed to glide across the room on a writhing, coordinated swarm of metallic tendrils and ambidextrous arms, moving over the machine corpses and...
Okay, yeah, no, he is well beyond even using the armor as ceremonial. He is very much full-on tech priest who just happened to come from a space marine.
...consoles of the bridge with ease as he made his way to the main computer, and the organic cyborg standing near it. Taslion crawled like a massive anthropod over the command throne of the ship, tendrils finding access panels, producing many varied inputs and output slots and patterns, testing them against every type of port and slot as his central, barely human form leered down upon the Xeno through glowing mechanical lenses. The throne sparked and chimed discordantly as several tendrils managed to connect to the machine. "Give me full access of this ship," the Tech Marine ordered the spider being, using its own language to do it.
Oh.
"I cannot. I do not know who you are or why you are here, but Count Dooku would kill me if I..." He got no further as several tendrils snapped out, surrounding the alien and enveloping him. The Xeno may have begged for its life, or may have stood firm, prepared to resist all. That was irrelevant, and the unverified conclusion of its actions didn't bother Brother Taslion in the slightest as his mechadendrites found the access and input slots around the alien admiral's collar. Its body went rigid as its mind was invaded. The Tech Marine could not help but feel a grudging respect for what he found. The technology was very clean, efficient. The mind impulse connection between the mechanical limbs and the alien brain which controlled them was sublime, smooth, and afforded him easy, almost pleasurable access into the...
I was going to say this is just weird because it's a space marine, a tech priest of anything, talking about how this is so clean and just it's really glowing about anything Xenos to the point where I'm surprised they can even let themselves do it in such a... I was going to say fetishistic, but that's too close to what he's doing right now because it sounds like he's fetishizing the alien tech. And he's basically a tech priest, so that's probably not even a joke. It's, I'm going to stop thinking about this. Too many toaster jokes.
Creature's thoughts. That was not to say that it was without defenses, as several neural nets, firewalls, and proxy signals were deployed in rapid succession in an attempt to drive him out. But they barely slowed him down. After all, compared to the religious obsession of the defense rituals which guarded Adeptus Mechanicus systems of all kinds, the timeless, almost mindless force of Necron
I'm sorry, I just commenting on the picture they chose generically. The source they're using here is someone's idea of a product placement ad because it has the key to symbolize, both show and symbolize, that this is security, and keys mean secure, and all the wires around it just look tech. They don't actually mean anything. It's just like, what would people think is a tech look without knowing what tech look is? Straight lines and curves and little dots and circly things. Yeah, and they all connect to the frickin'... I've seen things like this for just various ads, and it just annoys me. It was like, it means nothing. Nothing to do with the story itself. It's just the image itself is like, this is what cybersecurity looks like. Yeah. To be fair, what it actually would look like would be a boot up sequence, and that's very boring, so I guess it makes sense, but...
defense protocols and the living and corrupting horror of data daemon counter engrams, these defenses were trivial.
Yeah,
and so while the alien was technically not without defenses, it would be misleading to believe that he was anything but defenseless before the dissecting data drills and cipher-sundering engrams which the Tech Marine countered with. In the end, it was only will and will alone which could stand against any true invasion of the mind, and the will of the spider being was a sly, pernicious, but subtle thing, and it crumpled in his metaphorical fist when confronted so directly and so mercilessly.
And it was already subservient to Duke,
And so,
makes sense.
like a beast having brought down its wounded prey, Brother Taslian began to dissect and devour the information contained within the mind of the Xeno. It was called Trench, and it fought for the Confederacy of Independent Systems. The alien screamed, panic and horror spilling over its thoughts as it began to realize what was being done to it. Taslian wiped the disparate emotions away like a callous surgeon wiping gore off of his eye shield. It was here fighting the Galactic Republic, and it was about to retreat from this battle. It had set a bomb to explode, a bomb that would wipe out the planet and the combined armies beneath them. It struggled and kicked in the Marines' mental grasp.
And that does show a lot of things. Also, just in case I didn't get it, I did realize I missed when they transferred from the chapter master down to what looked like the captain or sergeant of the fire team. So, yeah, I got that. Also, I just love that we're actually seeing mental invasions and the entire aspect of just using technology on a cerebral level, specifically to get into someone's cerebrum. It doesn't happen in Star Wars that much, almost ever. Even though they have high mechanization, they never touch on the transhuman aspect here. Even in Star Wars, when you go full-on Darth Vader, who's more machine than man, or freaking Grievous, who literally is mostly machine and a few fiddly bits, it doesn't really come up. It's nice to see that aspect, even if it's horrific.
But he held it firm and tight as he forced the probes of his mind deeper, seeking the information he now needed. The bomb's deactivation code. Realizing his intention, the Xenos flailed one last time, using all of its strength and will. It struggled so hard, so violently, that it tore its own mind to shreds, and its neural mental circuits, never having been designed to maintain this kind of input and output strain, burnt out.
Oh, wow.
But despite succeeding in depriving Brother Taslian of further tertiary data,
that's a person's
alien
head.
had failed to keep him from the deactivation code to the bomb.
Very cyberpunk.
Still connected to the main console, he began eating and chewing his way through its security protocols and defenses. He had not gotten that access code, and even now he feared that, despite the ship's inability to resist him forever, it would resist him long enough to enable the bomb to go off. The chapter master had expressed a desire to conquer this world. Allowing the Xenos to destroy it ahead of their advance would not benefit the Omnissiah. And then he found something interesting.
What?
An exterior connection. Another hacker doing something similar to what he was doing. And it was not merely a man or woman at a panel. It was a mind-linked unit, just like himself. He seized the individual violently and by surprise, penetrating deeply into its mental defenses before it even realized what was happening.
Who's he hacking?
And as Taslian closed his fingers around this being's thoughts, he was shocked, and for the first time in a long time, stunned by what he discovered. A human, a fellow human, certainly of a different culture, a different mindset, but undeniably a human.
Oh, because while the chapter master knew there were humans, he might not have? Or is he talking about a human being so interlinked with the machine to be able to do this? I'm sorry, I don't understand why a human doing this is so shocking. Maybe it's just the Space Marine bias? I feel like I'm missing something right here. Because they know there's other humans here because they covered that. And the only thing I can think is maybe the chapter master didn't push that down, but I think he kind of did because they mentioned his other aims about having to clear or claim the planet as opposed to blow it up. We'll probably get to it, whatever it is.
Here, among these machines, he squeezed and compelled the mentally constrained man to identify himself. He resisted and was gradually forced to capitulate. In a desperate mental gasp, the
human
being
among
named
machines
itself. Echo, My name is Echo, and if you're not a separatist, then I am not your enemy.
Well, so for as much as the last episode did a lot of work to build up the internal plot on the 40K side and didn't do much to actually advance the story at all, this one did almost the exact opposite. It did a lot to advance the goings-on of a very specific selected group to interact with Star Wars, or specifically the Republic aspect, in a more, I don't want to say harmonious, but non-initially competing interests, where the Star Wars side is, hey, we want to get rid of the Separatists, and the 40K side is, we are going to get rid of every goddamn machine. So they kind of have similar aims that may not comprehend each other as initially, immediately going to kill each other. I have no doubt if given time that would definitely happen, but it doesn't seem like that's going to come up because all of this work, all of the setup of this plot is putting the group that should have the least capability to work with anyone else in the one situation where they can work with someone else. And I love this. I'm a little disappointed that I missed the transition from when they went from the Space Marine chapter master down to the sergeant, but it makes sense. I'm still annoying myself for missing that. But again, I'm me. I miss things. That said, still a brilliant piece of showing how someone is intelligent. Kind of still wish it was a chapter master because it would have been cool to have him on the bridge, but very much a useless thing to do and just very much his own pride if he had. And I would have thought less of him. So it makes sense, but still. Just, I like this. We got less happening than could have. It wasn't as immediately shocking as the Star Wars initiation because they saw the biggest changes. This, though, did move the plot forward. Specifically, it introduced a different aspect of Contact. Broke them off from the main 40K side, so they're going to be moving on parallel tracks of how they interact, and probably in the weirdest ways possible, because they are very much different factions with different mentalities. One is a large conglomeration that we see with the Skywatch. The other is going to be the Crimson Razors and how they are very much Razor-focused, you can say. It's a bit on the nose. I think they cut that off already. I like this because it's very much cool on how we're getting various perspectives. And normally, if you want to get two different Contact stories, you got to get two different stories for this. Here, the setup here is so diverse that we actually have two different First Contact stories contained within the overall narrative. And that's actually really impressive. So from a writing standpoint, I'm actually really impressed. Otherwise, you guys know the deal. Link below, original video, hit it up. And when you're done, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. You can again find me here when you subscribe. You can find me on Twitter at Airier Games. You can find me on Discord, link below. But if you find me on TikTok, that's not me. That's the asshole impersonating me. I don't know why they did it because why? But they do. So yeah, just so you know, not me. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.